What's up, Warriors fans? It's your main man Max here from Warriors Latest. And when it comes to Dub Nation, we got a lot to talk about. Now, a little while ago, I made a video detailing the blueprint that the Warriors need to follow in order to win an NBA championship going into the offseason. They have a lot of different things that they need to address, but one of the main topics that I talked about were buy low free agents. And a friend of mine, after watching this video, wanted me to go into more detail in what buy low free agents are because there are many definitions of what they could be. Now, in this aspect, buy low free agents are guys that are younger, on the younger end, so they're coming off their rookie contracts or their second round contracts or two-way contracts in that mind. And they really haven't gotten that fair chance despite the high potential that they have. Now, buy low free agents in terms of like young guys have been a thing for a while, whether they be straight out of the draft or they just have bounced around from numerous teams because they haven't had consistent roles. Now, usually guys like that are immature guys or high value guys that were drafted at a high pick, but things didn't work out for whatever reasons. Some examples are guys like DeAndre Jordan. Now, DeAndre Jordan was projected to be a top 5 overall pick in 2008. However, due to his youth and immaturity, he fell from projected to be the number 4 overall pick and fell all the way to the second round. I believe he was the 35th overall pick in 2008. And when he got in, he didn't really have a consistent role playing behind, I believe it was Marcus Camby. And when you're playing behind a former Defensive Player of the Year, it's not exactly easy. However, thanks to some roster movement on their end, DeAndre was able to become the starting center and had a great career with the Clippers before winning his title with the Denver Nuggets in 2023. He was also a gold medalist in 2016. Now, I would say the biggest buy low free agent that comes to mind, though, is none other than Mr. Big Shot Chauncey Billups. Now, Chauncey, if you remember or not, was a top 5 pick for the Celtics before getting traded to the Raptors. Then he was traded to Orlando, and then to the Nuggets, and then the Timberwolves, where he sort of broke out a little bit, but didn't really find his footing until he signed with the Pistons. And when he signed with the Pistons, we all know what happened from there. He goes with the Pistons, helps them win an NBA championship against a stacked Lakers team that included Kobe Bryant, Gary Payton, Karl Malone, and Shaquille O'Neal. And he was named Finals MVP. Now, that is easily one of the biggest come-ups from a buy low free agent that I've ever heard of. Now, as you know, he went on to have a great career with the Pistons, and it really had a resurgence with the Nuggets with Carmelo Anthony before getting traded with them to the Knicks and calling it a career after playing with the Clippers in Detroit again. And now he's the coach of the Trailblazers, where he's doing a very good job at rebuilding that team after Dame Lillard left. Now, you got to ask yourself, how can buy low free agents help the Warriors when they're in win now mode? Now, the Warriors are in win now mode, but you got to realize where they're at in terms of the cap situation. Now, Jimmy Butler, Draymond Green, and Steph Curry take up over 75% of the cap space, which really doesn't give the Warriors a lot of wiggle room when it comes to rebuilding their bench. And after the series versus the Timberwolves, the Warriors really need to rebuild their bench with some serious star potential. We saw what Moses Moody and Pods and Kuminga can do, but they're not going to give you future stars because in all likelihood, Kuminga is not going to be with the Warriors next season as he doesn't fit their offense. And Pods and Moody are nothing but really bench players. They're not going to become superstars or even stars or solid contributing starters moving forward. And that's a problem for the Warriors. They need to not only build for now, but they have to build for the future. And with buy low players, it allows you to invest in high potential players on team-friendly contracts. Now, who are some guys that are buy low players? And the two guys I talk about most are Amani Bates and Brandon Boston Jr. Now, when it comes to Amani Bates, he is the creme de la creme of buy low free agents. Imani Bates, coming out of high school, was the top recruit going in that was recruited by Memphis and was projected to be the number one overall pick in the 2022 draft over Orlando star Paolo Banchero. So that says a lot, and even I'm amazed by it. However, due to an inconsistent role within Penny Hardaway's offense, injuries, and some off the court issues, he didn't really get his chance to shine in Memphis and eventually decided to transfer to a college closer to home where he played his sophomore year with the Eastern Michigan Eagles, averaging over 20 points per game. Now, after that season, he was drafted by the Cavaliers in the second round and signed to a two-way deal where he's shown with the G League and consistent minutes that he can be that stud that everybody's projected. Now, don't get me wrong, he still had those injury issues, but I do believe those are behind him as he's been called up, has done scoring outbursts with the Cavs, but hasn't gotten those consistent minutes due to a clogged starting lineup and a clogged bench. Now, it isn't likely he's going to really break through with the Cavs due to their money constraints. The Cavs have a lot invested in Darius Garland. They have a lot invested in Donovan Mitchell. They have a lot of invested in DeAndre Hunter. They have a lot invested in Evan Mobley, especially since he won Defensive Player of the Year, and he gets that salary boost from that thanks to the Rose Rule. And they also have a fair amount of money invested in Jarrett Allen. And that's where the Warriors come in. They offer him a solid, guaranteed 4-year deal on a team-friendly contract and are able to develop him from the bench playing under great players, knowing that it's going to become his time eventually because that core of Steph, Draymond, and Jimmy isn't going to be as solid moving forward after the championship window closes. And it's more likely than not, they'll retire. So the Warriors have to have something that they can lean back upon during that rebuild that speeds up the rebuild to the point where, all right, they can make the playoffs a year after their window closes and all those guys retire. Because, like I said, they're not going to find that talent in the draft as they want to maximize their championship window and are likely going to trade away their draft picks in order to acquire high-end talent, along with the fact that if you're drafting in the later first round, the odds of finding top-tier talent is minimal. I mean, yes, it has been done since Jimmy Butler was a 30th overall pick in 2011, but I'm not really counting on it. Now, the other guy I talk about a lot is Brandon Boston Jr. Now, much like Imani Bates, Brandon Boston was projected to be a top 5 overall pick coming out of high school and was a 5-star recruit coming into Kentucky. However, due to injuries, inconsistent outbursts when it comes to scoring, and inconsistent playing time, and not really understanding his role within the offense at Kentucky, he really didn't thrive. And if you may remember, his year at Kentucky was the 2020-2021 season, which was known as the COVID year. Now, the COVID year was very weird because we all had to stay inside. We couldn't really communicate with each other. We always had to stay 6 feet. And when you're a young player playing on the basketball court, that can really hinder your emotional and on-the-court development. However, since he got drafted in the league by the Clippers, he's been able to develop at a pretty consistent pace, even though he's got inconsistent playing time and different opportunities. Now, with the G League team for the Clippers, he's averaged over 30 points per game, and that was in his rookie year, which in and of itself is impressive. I've never seen a G League player average over 30. So he's got that scoring prowess, and he's averaged consistently over 20 points per game since then in the G League. And even though he wasn't able to crack the lineup with the Clippers, he did show flashes with 20-point outbursts when Kawhi and Paul George were injured. Now, he didn't stick with the Clippers and got an opportunity with the Spurs to show what he did in the preseason, and unfortunately wasn't able to stick with them either, but also got another opportunity on a 2-way deal with the Pelicans and got several starts while also having several scoring outbursts and ended up averaging 10 points per game to go along with 3 rebounds as that 2-way player and spot starter. Now, if you think about it, if you're getting that inconsistent amount of minutes, the fact that you can score in the double digits and average in the double digits, says a lot. And for the Warriors, bottom line is that they need players that they can really count on, not only to come off the bench and provide that scoring output, but players that they can develop moving forward. And I know I've mentioned this several times already, they're not going to find those kinds of players in the draft. So they have to really comb through free agency to find these players that they can sign to team friendly long term guaranteed deals that will help them build towards the future. Because the window is going to close after the 26-27 season. Steph's going to call it a career. Jimmy is going to call it a career. And if Draymond doesn't call it a career, he's going to leave to go play for the Pistons for his last year to be closer to home. Now, I know these guys have had a lot of injuries, but remember who else had a lot of injuries in the beginning of their career? Steph Curry. So if the Warriors want to do well, they need to buy low on these free agents. And for Warriors Latest, I'm your main man, Max. And as always, go Dubs.